Alright, hello YouTube. Welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is the Potato Smasher. Today we're going to be taking a look at a game I had in the Baltimore, the Tier 8 American Heavy Cruiser, the Tech Trade Heavy Cruiser. There are two other American Heavy Cruisers at this tier, well, three actually. One is the Wichita, and the others are the as yet in testing USS Rochester and USS Congress. Now I'm playing this Baltimore mostly stock. I have all the upgrades and I have a 12-point commander. However, I do not have the upgraded hull, nor do I have the upgraded rangefinders. This is a top tier game. We are up against fairly good matchmaking. None of the battleships on the enemy team except for the Sinoff can overmatch us. And there are only 3 destroyers, but more importantly, there are 4 cruisers. Now, when playing the Baltimore, one thing you should consider is that this is very much a cruiser hunting cruiser. Something like an Alaska, but sort of downscaled. Her armor is fairly good, 27mm plating, and yes, she only has 36,600 health stock, but when fully upgraded she has a HP pool of 42,400 hit points, which is fairly substantial for a Tier 8 cruiser. Now another thing to consider is her fairly hefty firepower. She has 9 203mm guns in 3 turrets. I'm just taking an opening pot shot at the enemy Pensacola there, seeing if I can deal some damage to him. Right off the bat. I do hit him, but it's for 1 over-penetration, so nothing of any real value. Now, I'm moving towards this flank because I want to see if I can deal with the Otago and the Pensacola and whatever comes down this flank. Of course, I'm very much worried if the Akizuki or any of the enemy destroyers push down the middle, as seeing we've spread far too wide to actually have any meaningful impact there. So, if somebody goes for the cap, they can very much just go for it. There you see the Turbines was trying to fire some armor piercing at me. It just bounced off because, once again, 27mm plating, which ricochets 381mm or smaller guns. Now, first engagement, we're up against the Otago of the Pensacola. I take the Pensacola as my priority because he's the one that's visible. I open fire immediately, and then I immediately start bowing in because I know there's an Otago there. I got a fairly decent salvo on the Pensacola for around 10,000 damage. When I say decent, that's actually a fairly heavy salvo. And then the Otago just goes full broadside, and I'm like, oh baby, you're mine. 3 Citadels on the first hit for nearly 18,000 damage. I fire off another salvo, and, well, there he goes. First blood, 2 Citadels, down. Motherfucker. I immediately go bow in, so that I do not need any torpedoes, and meanwhile I just keep hacking away at the Weser's dive bombers. Another great thing about the Baltimore is that it has some fairly good anti-aircraft defenses, allowing it to stand up to even Tier 8 carriers. Just casually deleting the Pensacola there. Duke Nukem once again providing some fairly intriguing commentary. You should get his voice, by the way, it's actually pretty nice. Anyways, I'm sidling up to this island so I can sit back here and just farm the turpits and whatever comes down. Sticking with the armor piercing here because that's what I have in the barrels, and again, the Baltimore does get that improved American armor piercing, which means that I can penetrate the turpits' armor even at this range. However, I noticed something's off. The enemy Phosphorus hasn't been seen yet. And I'm thinking, well, it's a bit odd because, well, most of the time destroyers do tend to get spotted quite quickly, and then I realized, now hang on, oh, wait, he is right behind me. I go full panic mode, I immediately start turning away. Fortunately for me, the Vostros does not appear to have noticed that torpedoes tend to curve if you don't launch them properly. I now have him permanently hydroed, so whatever he does, he can't really do much about it. I stick with the high explosive, I start slowing down immediately so I don't drive into the Prince of Eugen and the turpits, because that would be bad. Very bad. Baltimore is very tanky against most incoming fire, but against 2 of those two, I wouldn't last very long. Weser comes in with more bombers. This time it comes in with torpedo bombers. You're going to see a lot of this Weser in this match, and why, well, this really just highlights the Baltimore's AP, or, yeah, AA. First, a 5,400 damage salvo on Nostros. Perma-fired, get some secondaries on him. Tries molding on more torpedoes. Unfortunately, I don't secure the kill, the Asashio does. Just narrowly dodging torpedoes from the Weser there. I shoot down more of his planes. And now I decide to... Well, I'm thinking, do I want to mosey here and just farm down the turrets in the Prince Eugen? But then I notice the Akatsuki is very close to our cap. But I don't notice this at first, and then I look at the minimap and I'm like, no, hang on, that's not right. So I decide to start reversing and, you know, get back to the base. Now, another great thing about the Baltimore is her concealment. Her minimum surface detection range is just 9.9 kilometers. That gives me an enormous advantage when dealing with enemy cruisers and enemy battleships, especially destroyers, because, well, I can stealth radar them. Baltimore, of course, being an American cruiser, has access to the typical 10-kilometer surveillance radar, but because it's a Tier 8, it has that fairly good concealment. It actually has really good concealment for a heavy cruiser, and that allows me to sneak into engagement range of enemy cruisers and destroyers and just stealth radar them. It's absolutely hilarious, especially when you do it to, like, bottom tier cruisers that think they're stealthier than you, and then they realize they're not. Anyways, I backed up. I tell my team, force him out of the cap, I'm on my way. What that means is I'm willing and ready to assist to deal with the Akatsuki. I tried taking a pot shot at Fuso over the islands, unfortunately I can't. You're probably noticing one of the few weaknesses of the Baltimore besides the questionable armor. Like, yeah, it doesn't really have questionable armor, it's just it's good but not great, is the floaty shells. This means that the shells take quite a long time to get to their targets, but it's not too much of a problem if you know how to lead right, and the results are just consistency. The consistency of the ship is just absurd. Background, Farragut completely floods out and devastates the enemy Sinop with a single torpedo launch, so that eliminates one of the battleships of the enemy team. Now I notice that the turrets and the Prinz Eugen are sort of running, I guess? I guess they're running? I want to say they're running, but at the same time I don't want to say they're running. I take target lead on the turrets, or I would, but he's out of my range. Unfortunately, Stock Baltimore only has 14.4 kilometer range, so I take priority target on the Fuso instead, and I start peppering him with high explosive. All the while making pace towards the enemy Akatsuki down near our cap. Now this is another great thing about the Baltimore, it's a very good kiting cruiser. It has fairly good firing angles backwards, and when you're top tier, you face a lot of battleships with 356mm or 380mm guns. You can just bounce them. Switching to the armor piercing here because the Fuso is giving me a nice flat broadside. I'm not really doing too much damage to the Fuso with the high explosive, that's because he does have some floating armor. I switch to the armor piercing and immediately get 5,000 damage. Sashio torpedoes the turrets out of the water. Now the Fuso appears to be rushing towards the Asashio? I don't know, I guess the Asashio lost his smoke, or used his smoke at the wrong time, and he's just been perma-spotted by the Weser, and now he's been spotted out by the Fuso himself. So, that Asashio is pretty much dead. But while the Asashio is distracting the Fuso and the Prinz Eugen, I keep my fire up on him, so he doesn't distract me. Still spotted, but it really doesn't matter. Set one fire on the Fuso. Did he damage control this? Probably did. Sashi goes down, but it doesn't really matter. Just keep fire on the Fuso. He's too occupied otherwise to deal with me because he has his guns turned all the way towards the where the Sashi was. Prinz Eugen keeps his fire on the Bismarck. Bismarck slaps Fuso for a pretty hefty amount of damage. And I once again mosey behind the islands, or start to mosey behind the islands. I switched to my armor piercing here, anticipating that the Prinz Eugen is going to push in and turn out. Keep my pepper on the Prinz Eugen. Did I lead this right? Probably. I don't think I did. Again, another one of the Baltimore's faults is that its shell arcs are relatively sluggish. I do hit him, but I think I aim too high, or my shells just went everywhere. Or just looking at the minimap, it's easy to tell that he started turning out the moment that the armed person started flying towards him. So I guess he just dodged that. Now, 5 enemy ships left on the map. We have 7 allies. I'm one of them. Now, just turning here to look, I know there's a Dallas and an Akizuki here. Ranger spots out the Dallas and the Akizuki, both of which have their anti-aircraft defenses on. So I'm thinking, how do I deal with this? I decide to take a pot shot at the Akizuki, see what happens. I hit him with 1 shell for about 1,000 damage. Doesn't really matter. So my target priority here is Dallas, then Akizuki. Dallas has more health, but he's more vulnerable to my armor-piercing shells because he's only a light cruiser. If he gives too much broadside to me, he's screwed. But then I think, well, no, the Akizuki's closer. He's the one that can easily whittle me down for my smoke if I misuse my consumables. But then I think, no, the Dallas is going to be full broadside by the time I come around the island. So I decide to load the armor piercing instead. Of course, I can make that decision whenever I want. I have expert loader on this commander. So I come around the islands and I fire up both my surveillance radar and high-precision search, reveal both the Dallas and the Akizuki, and I open up on the Dallas first because he's flat broadside, and wipe him out as the Confederate.
Like a shit cookie.
Duke once again providing some interesting commentary. Akizuki stationary apparently. I damage control the fire. Slam the Akizuki quite hard. And I'm staying bow in with my Hydra running so that I don't need any of these torpedoes. Laser torpedoes incoming. I have to be very careful here not to eat any of the torpedoes. I wouldn't mind eating a Vesper torp, but Akizuki torp, absolutely not. And there is our next medal. First we got the Confederate, now we have an AA defense expert. He's fed us 37 planes so far. Now I turn around and I see, oh hello, there's a Principal again. Just toot my horn. Now I'm up to 107,000 damage and 3 kills. Akizuki got robbed blind from under my nose, so I'm thinking we'll just go for the Principal again instead. Unfortunately, I appear to have overshot my first volley. Thankfully, Baltimore's reload is only 10 seconds, so I can get another salvo off pretty quickly. And unfortunately, it wasn't the Bismarck, it was the Kansas that just stole it from underneath me. So we're just gonna fast forward this very quickly. And then we're just gonna enjoy as the planes just get shot out of the sky. This is always very satisfying to watch. Carriers just throwing their planes into a cruiser's home, just like nom 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 nom. It's always satisfying. Anyways, so far we have a First Blood, Confederate, a defense expert. We have 3 kills, 40 planes, 123 shell hits. We're going to get a little more damage up in here. So we're just going to fast forward again. You see I'm complaining in chat about not getting my Kraken. It's fine though.
A crowbar would come in handy right about now.
At this point I tell chat that I want that Weser. I really do want that Weser because this carrier has just been coming after me all day long. It's just, I'm annoyed. You can tell at this point that I'm kind of annoyed by this carrier. So I tell him, I want the Weser. Now unfortunately, again, stock range, only 14.4 kilometers, don't really have a way of actually, damaging him just yet until I close to firing range. So I just keep heading in the direction that the Weser was last spotted, and then the Ranger spots him out. He's on 37,000 health. Weser comes back for me with more planes. Only 3 out of his 8 dive bombers. Keep my target on Pipper. Waiting for the Weser to get into my crossers, get into range. I shoot down another 3 of his planes. At this point, he's out of planes. Like, he's literally out of planes. He can keep cycling them all he wants, but he's just been feeding me so many planes this entire match. It's hilarious. I open up on the Weser. Early lead, doesn't do much damage, only around 1800 or 1700. This time I take a little bit of a better lead. I priority sector to get rid of the rocket planes. First salvo, 5 full pencil citadel, 12,000 damage, so fairly good. Comes after me with his rocket planes, barely does any damage. Second salvo, another 10,000 damage. Third salvo in the air, and this salvo leaves him on just 507 health. And I'm like clicking furiously, do I get the kill, do I get the kill? I do get the kill, that is 144,000 damage, 4 kills, and that's the game. So of course, this is the end battle results screen. I just have this open on Google Photos because for whatever reason, I just can't do this from replays. 144,000 damage, 55 planes shot down, a defense expert, Confederate, and first blood, 14 citadels. Unfortunately, I got denied my Kraken. That's fine. As you can see, top of the team with 2,525 base experience. Probably the first time I've seen that. Pretty neat though. So, I guess I'll take it. I'm not going to say that's almost double the Bismarcks, but, well, you know, when the next person on your team scores like less than 1,400 base experience, but you scored like nearly over 2,500, you know you carried. Here's the damage screen. You notice how I barely took any damage this game. I'm not going to comment on the positioning. I feel like I played a little bit questionably. Didn't take that much potential. I didn't take that much fire, only less than 500,000 potential damage, so I didn't really take that much focus fire this game, so I guess it's fine. And that's just the end screen. Anyways, that's all I'm going to leave you guys with. I hope you enjoyed this video. I apologize for any echoing you might have heard through the videos. I've just got a new microphone, so that's going to be something I'll have to sort out. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. Potato out.